The samples to move faster.
PhD student Jessica Torres in a chemistry lab at San Diego State shows me a tiny glass tube she uses to sort through molecules. She can tell by their movement what kind they are and whether they are biological. Ultimately, she hopes to see those signs of life in material gathered from Mars. And where might you find those life signs on the surface of Mars, where there's no water, punishing solar rays, and a high salt content?
It's going to be a very harsh environment. So if there was life to be detected on Mars, it likely would be in porous rocks or on the underside of rocks, somewhere that's kind of shielded from like the harsh environment that is Mars.
The work in this lab could ultimately prove that there is life or was life on at least one other planet in the universe. That's something that we have imagined, it's something we've assumed, but it's never been proven. Analytical chemistry professor Chris Harrison manages the lab, and he's Torres's advisor.
We're looking at the building block molecules that make life function, so specifically amino acids. And these are like little Lego blocks that you assemble them in the right sequence and you get different proteins or enzymes and the functional components of cells.
The glass tube they use to try to sort out the life-building molecules has a channel more narrow than a human hair. Molecules pass through it at different speeds, depending on their size and their electric charge, and that race through the tube can determine whether you are looking at, say, an amino acid. NASA has been successfully landing on Mars since the 1970s, and the first images from the planet showed a perfectly barren landscape. But eventually they did find evidence of old riverbeds likely formed by past water flows. We also have learned that Mars has a thin atmosphere, shown by this drone landing on the planet. Today, the Mars rover Perseverance is up there. It's parked on one of those dried-up river deltas, hoping to collect sedimentary rocks that show signs of life. Michael Meyer is NASA's lead scientist for the Mars exploration program. He says if we find proof that life once existed on Mars, that could change our conception of life in the universe.
What is life? What do we know? All we know is us, right? We have one example. As any scientist, one example is not enough to constitute a way to understand the totality of what life is.
Finding proof of life on Mars could demonstrate that there's nothing unique about life on Earth, that in fact the creation of life is just a natural part of a planet's physical and chemical evolution.
As an example, if you have volcanoes and you have water and you have these elements, given enough time, life will start. It could be that easy. We don't know.
The human relationship with the Martians we imagine dates back to the 19th century. That's when H.G. Wells wrote War of the Worlds. Science fiction author and NASA consultant David Brin says Mars is one of the logical places to look for life.
I think that if we find life elsewhere, it'll be basically a pretty cool thing. And the number one candidate is not Mars right at this moment, or even the clouds of Venus, which really recently were topics, but the 10 ice-roofed water worlds we know we have in the solar system now.
He's talking about, for example, Saturn's moon Titan and Europa, one of the moons of Jupiter, moons that are known to have or believed to have liquid oceans.
Let's say we find that life did evolve on its own elsewhere. Well, that suggests that life is everywhere in the cosmos, just bloody everywhere. And that's what I believe to be the case.
Astronomy has also identified 5,000 planets that exist in other solar systems, so the possibilities are great. But for now, we're just looking at what may exist on our next-door planetary neighbor, Mars. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.